Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. We're in San Francisco with JoJo Foote. All right, JoJo, I want to get to know you, like I said in the intro there. So let's start with where did you live in San Francisco? Where did you grow up?
I was born and raised in San Francisco, and I grew up on a town about 12, 15 miles south of the city, little bedroom community called Belmont. And I had 8 brothers and sisters, and we shared one bathroom, and that's a true story.
Okay.
That could be a whole show in itself, though.
Yeah, that's a whole episode. Let's do 5 segments.
Yeah.
All right, 8 brothers and sisters. You shared one bathroom, small house. I'm imagining that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So what was the street that you grew up on? Can you say?
I could, if you'd like to hear it.
I mean, is your family still there? I don't want to,
No,
address.
No,
Okay.
It was on Hillman Avenue. So fans, stay away. I don't live there anymore.
What was it called? Golden Avenue?
Hillman.
Okay, Hillman. Where was your favorite place as a kid? Were they all brothers or the?
No, I had 4 brothers and 4 sisters.
Oh my God. Well, that sounds like
Catholic,
fun. Oh, there you go. Irish Catholic. That makes sense. That sounds like a fun family to grow up in. Actually, probably a lot of fights, a lot of fighting over clothes and food and stuff. That's all I imagine.
It was just fun watching the 2 older sisters get ready on dates, because I was the 8th in line, so I was pretty young, and I used to go in there and just mess with them all the time. So
the oldest of your siblings were sisters. There were 2 sisters.
Yeah, 2 sisters. Maureen and Janice were my older sisters, and they would be getting ready in the bathroom for a date or something like that when they were probably 16 or so, and I'd be like 5 or 6, and I would go in there and see some of their clothes, and I'd take it and run, and they would just be chasing me all over the house. Give me back my clothes. They were just, typical little brother.
Typical little brother.
Little devil I was. Yep, I was.
They hated you and loved you at the same time. I'm sure they loved you more than they got mad at you.
Yeah, we have a great relationship now, but back then it was, stay out of my way kind of a thing.
Yeah, out of my room. That's the duty of a small brother, though. That you were just fulfilling your obligation under the contract, on the little brother contract.
Well, my father used to, come home and he would read the newspaper, and he would put cotton in his ears. And I used to wonder why did he do that all the time? Because there was so much commotion, he just tuned everything out. And he would take one ear plug out and say, as long as you boys aren't killing each other, I don't need to know. And he put it back in and start reading the paper.
That's a smart man. He had to unwind after work, huh? What did your father do?
He was a supervisor for California Water Service. To describe him, he looked like Henry Fonda, and he talked like Henry Fonda because they were both from Nebraska, so they had that very Midwestern, mellow kind of tone and dry humor. He used to just have all these little funny little sayings, and I still use them to this day. And I used to hate them when I was a teenager, especially because your dad would embarrass you. If one of the kids said, hey, wait for something, he'd say, wait, that's what broke the wagon down. Or if you said, hey, he'd say, straw's cheaper. Things like that. Awesome. Yeah, he was just a character. He must have got it from my grandfather, who I never had the pleasure of meeting, but that dry wit kind of carried over to me a little bit. But it was quite a household of kids. Let's just say that, and how he kept his sanity through it all, I'll never know.
Man, crazy. Do you have any kids?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters.
Yep, I do.
Very cool. So your father was the supervisor.
Yeah, for California Water Service.
Okay. And your mother, I imagine with all those kids, she probably had to take care of all of you and raise you, right?
Yeah, she stayed at home mom until the youngest, my younger sister, turned, teenage years, or maybe 13, 14. She took a job at the Hilton Hotel in the gift shop.
Hmm.
She just, she needed to get out.
Yeah. But what an important job. And obviously she did a great job of
Oh yeah, no, she
what I
was
know of you so far.
very strong Irish mother. She was from Boston, and her parents were immigrants from Ireland, and she had the greatest Bostonian accent, and she never understood what the accent was, but everything was "Pak the Ka,"
Yeah.
"Pavajad," it was,
I think the Boston accent, the heavy one, is my favorite accent. I just love
yeah,
hearing it. I just love when from Marky Mark and all his brothers
oh
to
yeah.
anybody. My grandfather was from Boston too, so Peralt, he was a Frenchman. But I've never been. Can you believe that? I've got to get there. How about
Oh,
you?
Boston. Yeah, oh, absolutely, several times. Yeah,
Well, let
yeah.
me ask you. So, with this big family, Irish Catholic family, a lot going on,
Oh yeah.
4 brothers, 4 sisters. Um, was there a lot of music in the house? It seems like to me, I'm imagining a lot of music.
Yes, definitely. Well, Dad was really into the jazz swing music era,
Who are his
and
favorites? Who are your
oh,
dad's?
my dad's favorites, Harry James, um, Artie Shaw, Benny Goodman. Um, he actually saw Benny Goodman perform. My dad's a lot older than me because I was so young when I was born. I was the eighth.
Was there a
So
song, a jazz song by one of those that you mentioned that, in your mind, almost defines that period for you a little bit? Do you hear it and you go back to your dad?
for that makes me think of my dad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It was a Benny Goodman song. I think it's what's it called? I think it's Swinging at the Savoy. Is that it? I don't know. I can't remember the name of it. That one and Begin the Begin. I know he liked that one. Um, he used to say this though. This is a very funny thing about my dad, because my older brothers, would talk about the pop bands and various groups that came out, and used to get into arguments with him about, because he'd always be saying, that your music's too loud. It's whatever. Then you listen to Led Zeppelin or the Who or the Beatles or something. One day, my brother was talking to him and saying something. They were talking about greatest composers, and my dad was, of course, mentioning people like Gershwin and some of the classics, that that he liked, and some of the jazz artists from Count Basie to Benny Goodman and Marty Shaw. And my brother would say, Dad, the John Lennon and Paul McCartney are the greatest musical composers ever. And he looked straight in my brother's eye and said, the only good Beatles song is when it's performed by Harry James. And I guess Harry James had covered one of the Beatles songs. I think it was Michelle or one of those songs. So he says, I like the Beatles when they're played by somebody else.
Somebody that I love.
Yeah, something.
Covers.
Yeah, he was his way.
So you're an incredible musician, incredibly talented. Does it run in the family? Were there musicians before? Because your father and your mother weren't musicians, or were they? I mean, how did the
No,
music find you?
no, my dad, he played the clarinet a little bit, very just for fun kind of a thing. But my older brothers, 3 of them could play. Well, my oldest brother played sax and clarinet in like marching bands in school. And but my 2 other brothers, the middle ones, both played guitar. And one of my brothers went on to Broadway and was very big on acting. He actually got a scholarship in drama to Notre Dame, and he dropped out after 1 year because his drama teacher just said, "You aren't ready for stage, bigger things right now." So he went up to New York and did theater, but he was also an incredible musician. I mean, technically better than me, you know. maybe I got more of the songwriting trait, you know, but him as a musician I learned a lot from him, you know, picking up on things and, you know, style of music, what he was playing, techniques, things like that. I mean, I'm a guitar player, but I played bass in my bands usually. I played guitar in some bands, but I'm more considered a bass player. When I do a session or whatnot, usually it's for my bass playing than it is my guitar playing. But and then my other brother played guitar, but never took it any further than just, you know, parties and things like that. But yeah, I got a lot of influence from my family in terms of listening to music, understanding it, and just the raw emotion of it, picking up on, you know, how songs are written. And I was really interested in that from an early age. I mean, I started playing guitar around the age of 6 because there were guitars lying around. But where I was at a disadvantage was being born left-handed. My other brothers were right-handed, so I couldn't just play their guitars right-handed. I had to flip them upside down, play the strings upside down, and have to kind of make chords out of it.
What an interesting way to learn the guitar.
It was really the only way to do it, but I did it, and I got pretty good at it. And by the time I was around 12 or 13, I really started to want to write my own songs, you know. So I was, you know, listening more to composers, I mean, you know, songwriters of that era and of classic rock, like going back Beatles, Stones, you know, Pete Townsend, but also the current stuff that was out. And I found myself being really troubled by trying to figure out some of these chords because my guitar was upside down, these strings were upside down. And a friend of mine said, well, why don't you switch the strings around, you know? And again, I'm about 12 years old, so I didn't have the foresight to go, oh, duh, that's a good idea. And then I could learn the chords proper. So that's what I did. And I took one guitar class, and it was just enough so I could learn the names of the chords, because I knew where my fingers needed to go once I learned the positions. And then I was off. And then it was like, oh my gosh, this whole, you know, there's a whole palette out there of musical ideas. And I just fed off of that and started to, you know, draw from that and play my own chord structures and put songs together and then try to put melodies on top of it.
So what did your sisters listen to?
My sisters listening to, older sisters definitely would be the 60s, 70s classics.
Okay. How about your brothers? You were Led Zeppelin, Beatles that you mentioned?
Yeah, they were, same, kind of the same. I mean,
so you were all, the kids were all listening to one type of music, right? Is that right?
Oh yeah.
And then, but did you appreciate the jazz, or was that just the first thing that you were exposed to, really, from that your dad loved?
I'll tell you a quick little story, if I may. When I was 10 years old, my dad took me to see Woody Herman and his Thundering Herd. The name Thundering in the band name is enough to lurk my attention.
Yeah, got mine.
That's the right way of putting it. So I went because, sure, when you're 10 years old, you get to go out at night to a concert. Sure.
Had you been to a concert yet before this?
No.
This is your first concert.
Well, I mean, if you count watching my brother's band play and things like that at dances,
but like a real, this is
real
like
concert, sit down theater. Yeah, this was in gosh, where was it? It was at the old, I guess it was the Warfield, maybe. I couldn't remember the name of the theater. It was on Market Street. Anyway, we go there, and my dad gets out his cotton that he kept in his pocket I told you about earlier, and he puts it in his ears before the show even starts. And he's looking over at me, and I'm going, what are you doing, Dad? What are you putting cotton in your ears for? Just you wait. And that band came out, and every horn player had a mic on his horn, and just blasted out the opening notes, and it was just so loud. I think my ears are still ringing from that show alone.
So I got you. Well, we got to take a real quick break here. I love that.
Okay.
Tell me the name of the band again. I want to look.
It was Woody Herman and his Thundering Herd. They
Woody
were
Herman.
a band. It wasn't all the. It was Woody was still alive, but it wasn't all the original band. They go back to like World War II era, I think.
I don't think I've ever heard of them, or if I have, it didn't register. I don't know if I listened.
Yeah, they were pretty well known for the time, and but that was the loudest because it was a big jazz thing. So anyway.
Well, let me tell you before we go to break. I don't know if you can do this. I mean, it's so hard, I think, to describe music. But what are the music that your brothers and sisters listen to? Remember how, like, when it was that fresh, when you just never heard it before, what that sounded like? Like, if you can, just in like a word or two, describe what that sounded like, and then in a word or two, what jazz sounded like to you back then, if you can remember. So you can take a word or two that might describe that. How you heard it.
How I heard it. A one-word description, maybe powerful. The stuff that I was really attracted to listen. You know, when I heard something that really attracted me, it would, you know, I'd want to listen to it over and over and over again if it was that good. As far as the jazz, I appreciate, as a kid, like that first concert, I appreciated it. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't, you know, it was still my parents' generation. There was still sort of a gap then, you know, and we still had that sort of like, well, you know, your music is your music. Stuff I like, or the stuff my older brothers like that were passed on to me, I like theirs better. The stuff they passed down to me was like, had that more impact. But as I got older, in my teen years, I went to a few more jazz concerts with Dad, and I began to appreciate it. And I actually kind of got into it. I wasn't moving towards it, you know, a musical career in that direction necessarily, but I understood it more, and the way the orchestra works together.
Appreciated it.
Oh yeah, it was, you know, to me that was heaven.
Did you and your dad ever? I'm sorry.
You know, just how the bands work together. It was like heaven in a bottle, or, you know, wow.
Yeah, magic. I think powerful is a great way to describe, you know, how you, when you're a kid, how that feels and sounds. Music, you know, it's new to you, and it's just wow.
There's nothing else matters after that. You know, you hear something that's good.
And how's it? Why do I feel this way? You know, like, why am I getting this energy?
Right.
Did you ever go to? We got to take the break. I'm way over, but did you ever go to Birdland in New York City with your dad?
No.
Or on your own?
No, I did not go to Birdland
Jazz Club.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah. The owner is a good friend of the show. I was just wondering if you'd been in there. All right, we got to take a real quick break. This is great. Did I tell you it was going to be a great story? JoJo Foote. He's my special guest today. He's a music artist. He's a songwriter. He's a session player as well. He's on Facebook and Instagram. You can find him at JoJo Foote. On Instagram, it's actually JoJo Foote 98, but I think you get JoJo in there and it pops up. It did for me anyway. And follow him like I did, and keep in touch and on track of what JoJo's up to. And it's always something good. In fact, I want to congratulate you. I don't know what date this is. I could probably find out. It was only 1 week ago. You made it to the #1 spot on Radio Indie Alliance, the top 10. There's 75, and you got to #1. JoJo Foote, his new single is Plain Sight. It's just incredible. We're going to play some music for you here. Let me tell you what we're going to go to break with. It's a new single, Shattered Glass. Love this one. Yeah, again, JoJo Foote, music artist, songwriter, session player. Follow him. You can go to jojofoote.bandcamp and buy his music, but you can also follow him anywhere, Spotify and all the major music platforms. We'll be right back. Here is Shattered Glass by JoJo Foote.